This is Inspirational Women, a weekly series shining the spotlight on female trailblazers making a true difference in our community. Once again, here is Kate Daniels.
Rebecca Rosenberg is an award-winning historical novelist who brings us her newest novel, Licensed to Thrill, Lily Bollinger, the third in the Champagne Widow series, an introduction to strong women, made so because of the circumstances in their lives, and they used the moments to stand strong and true to themselves. Rebecca Rosenberg, good morning, and I'm so grateful that we have this opportunity to connect and talk about some wonderful, interesting things, books, and champagne on top of it.
Sounds like a good thing, this bright, beautiful morning.
Doesn't it, though? A springtime morning and talking about that bubbly. Now, you tell me, as this champagne authority, a champagne historian I read, is champagne something for the morning?
Oh, it certainly can be. Yes, definitely. When I have toured Champagne in France, I guess 6 times now, and it definitely starts in the morning. It can be. And that changed over time. And the 3 books that I've written about the women of Champagne, they were the ones who were really catalysts to changing Champagne from being it used to be a dessert drink when it was first invented, something you had after dinner, to now being an aperitif. And then, of course, it has evolved even to morning mimosas and all of that.
Right. So the thing that I really find intriguing, and my first introduction to you is as this author of a series of books on women who are leaders in incredible champagne companies in France. These are historical novels that intrigue me and I think will intrigue our listeners as well. But then I read that you are the champagne historian and you lead these tours. And so then I'm intrigued about you. So let's talk about you a little and how you developed this interest in champagne.
Okay. Well, I live in Sonoma County. And right now I'm looking out onto the vineyards. So we live right in the center of Sonoma Valley, and we are surrounded by vineyards. We've lived here for 30 years already. Can't believe that. And so I've become friends with many, many of the winemakers and our sparkling winemakers here, and best friends with some of them. I just love the whole thing about sparkling wine. So I got very drawn to that and the process, because I don't know if you know, Kate, or if you could tell from reading Licensed to Thrill, Lily Bollinger, but champagne is about twice as much work as making wine. And it takes twice as long to make it. And that's why it's something exquisite and light. And I think we talked earlier about it coming into the morning. I think what I like personally about sparkling wine and champagne is it's a much lighter, effervescent kind of wine or alcohol to drink. And it can be very pleasing. And that's why it really elevates people's mood. Throughout time, it's always elevated their mood. And that's really a unique character because, as you know, some alcohols will just put you under.
Yes. So,
yeah,
uplifting.
Very uplifting and makes you happy. I was just looking at the quotes. The next book that I write about champagne is going to be about all the famous quotes about champagne. And throughout time, more and more people have said how uplifting it is and how they really love it as part of their life. Everybody from Napoleon Bonaparte to Winston Churchill to Marilyn Monroe to all the actresses, they just feel that it really enlivens their life. It's a nice, light aperitif to raise your mood.
And so what's interesting, you have been living in this area, and it sounds so amazing to just look out at vineyards. There's just something that's, it feels so perfect, so ideal to have that kind of situation surrounding you. And you developed a lot of interest then, but were you already interested in wines and champagne prior to the move to Sonoma County?
Sure. I've been interested in wine since I was 21. In fact, I've been interested in sparkling wine specifically. Something about that taste and that delicious effervescence has always been intriguing to me. And the more I delved into that, the more I realized that it's quite a process. Let me go back to who was the first person who invented champagne. And
Okay.
actually, they discovered it more than invented it. Do you know who that is? You've heard of him,
It's probably the name of a champagne, is it?
Dom Perignon.
Oh,
Yes, Dom Perignon. So Dom Perignon was a monk, and he actually did not invent champagne. He discovered it because his champagne or his wine that he was making was getting all bubbly, and he was trying to figure out why it was doing that. And what it was actually happening is it was going through a second fermentation, which was making it bubbly. And he realized that when he tasted it, it was delicious. You know, that maybe it wasn't a mistake so much as delicious. And he started selling it to the king. And the king really liked it. And then the whole court loved it. So he just kept making this Dom Perignon champagne. And I've been to that town and his gravesite and the little church and the very small winery where that was discovered. That's kind of exciting.
it is. It's so fascinating. It makes life and what we do and what we enjoy just so much more interesting, I find, and to find these connections. So to learn these small details or important details, I think just adds to the enjoyment of what we have this next glass of champagne.
I think it does. And to know the history of these three women that I've chosen out of many, many champagne widows, and I'll describe that in a minute, what that means. But these three women were key to really bringing champagne into a whole new universe, really, to make it from a very small thing, like something that would just be served like a local cider, into a worldwide phenomenon. And Lily Bollinger, who is the book that we're talking about right now, License to Thrill, as you saw when you were reading it, she really made it a world affair. And she did that in 1947, right after the World War II. And she had survived World War II and she was a widow. And she had her winery, and she decided what she needed to do was go to America and introduce Bollinger champagne to all of America. Well, I think that's pretty gutsy for a 47-year-old woman who'd never traveled outside of France, her little countryside of France, and to conquer all of America in a 2-month tour where she met every hotelier and every restaurateur and celebrities and dignitaries and movie stars and all of that in 1947. And she decided that. I thought it was brilliant because America was really excited about winning the war and they wanted to celebrate. And so she was the one who really pushed champagne out of France and into America and made everybody desire this Bollinger champagne to celebrate.
Yes, so brilliant. The character, I think that's something we need to just really embrace, understand, as to that drive, that boldness, just, you know, pulling herself together to stand up against whatever forces. And because during the war, of course, it was against the Nazis.
Yes, exactly. And then, I said that I would describe who these champagne widows are. What I've discovered is the first book that I wrote was from 1800, and it was Veuve Clicquot, which is the number one champagne in the world right now. And she was a widow because her husband had died. And I found out from 1800 to this time, like World War II, so 1944, 45, they had war after war after war in France. And so all of these women for that long, that's a really long time, that's 150 years, there were so many widows in France that weirdly, the widows got a chance to work and they got a chance to make something of themselves, because in France, just like here in America too, women did not have the right to own their own business until much later. In the 70s, I think we got that right. And so they were called champagne widows, and they would never get remarried, or else their business would be owned by their husband.
Aha.
So that's the story of all of these women. And not only was it them, these three particular women, but it was all the workforce had to be filled by women. So they really got to step out and show what they could do.
Yes. And it was this huge responsibility. I mean, I can't even fathom what it would feel like, but you describe it so incredibly in this book, License to Thrill, of how Lily needed to be so strong. She had to really pull on all her reserves, and she did. And the way that she would stand up to the enemy, really, is who they are, and these top-ranking officials, and she would just basically face them down, but in a very a strong, steady manner. It wasn't anything that was, loud and in their face, right? Just very strong.
Yeah, when I looked back at who Lily was when she married her husband, she was a genteel country woman, and almost like a noble woman type of person. So she was married to her husband, and they carried on that winery, but she wasn't really part of it until he died in 1941 and left it to her, and they had no children. So she had to figure out how she was going to run this winery with no children to carry it on, while she was occupied by the Nazis, not only in their town. And I've been to this town, it's called AI, many times. And I just can imagine what it would be like for the Nazis to be living in your cellars, living in your basement. And they had this man called the Wine Führer, who was in charge of stealing and taking the wine for the Third Reich. And so he would come. I mean, there's a very famous story, and it's in the book as well, where he comes to visit her and he's saying, "You owe me 3,000 bottles of your champagne so I can send it directly to the Fuhrer." And she says, "Well, I don't think so. I think we're going to have to go through the ranks." And because they had set up a governing factor with all the champagne houses so that they would not be able to do those illegal things. So she did stand up to him. And the story is that he was a big man, and she made it so that he only had this little spindly chair to sit in when he came to visit her. And he actually broke it one time. And that's the last time he came to visit her. So I love how she was this genteel woman who had not been thrown into the lion's den of business or making these things happen. And she really rose to the occasion time and time and time again.
I love to learn about these women who are so strong. These stories, and these are history. We can learn so much and be encouraged in whatever it is our role is. But it's so amazing. It's not like she, as you say, she was this genteel
woman.
Yes.
She had not been trained for this at all.
And had to deal with the few men that were still left working for the fields, but also the owners of the other wineries maybe they were too old to be at war or in the war, so they were there, and she had to hold her own amongst all of them.
Yeah, and she hadn't been part of that group ever before, and she was the only woman at that time completely. So that was strange. And then the fact that she had no children, which was a huge kind of scar for her, because she had no one to pass on this amazing legacy that already, when she owned it in 1941, already had been around for more than 100 years. And so imagine that kind of responsibility. Like, am I going to be the one that makes this heroic winery go under? No, she's not. But I think the most fun part of License to Thrill Lily Bollinger, and the reason for its name, is that because she was so audacious about bringing champagne to the whole world, that's how it got to be the number one champagne of James Bond. And that was completely brilliant. I remember going to drive-ins and seeing James Bond, and he was always drinking Bollinger champagne. I didn't think anything about it because I didn't know anything about champagne, but it was in 16 James Bond movies. And that was before product placement in movies was a thing. And yet somehow her nephew, Lily's nephew, became best friends with the producer of the James Bond films, whose name is a crazy name called Cubby Broccoli. Cubby Broccoli is his name. And he produced the James Bond films. And supposedly, without any money passing hands, Bollinger became James Bond champagne. Now, can you imagine what kind of worldwide strength that was? Yeah, impact that was. Wow. Amazing.
Really?
So,
Yes, it becomes almost this household name because
yes,
yes, we know how
exactly.
that
Like
works.
I was a little girl watching it in a drive-in, and that's the first champagne I ever knew was a Bollinger champagne because of that.
So,
So, yeah,
yeah, great
very,
stories within the story, all these different
yeah.
avenues. It's so interesting. The name Champagne is something that Lily is also responsible for having protected, right?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up because I did not realize that before I started researching her. So, what you're saying is the name Champagne with a capital C stands for that area in France where they grow the kinds of grapes that make champagne up. And champagne, the kind we drink, is with a small c. So it's just champagne that way. And what was happening is people all over the world were starting to make champagne. And specifically, they were calling it champagne. Specifically, Spain started shipping in Spanish champagne all over Europe. And so she headed the fight, and this was so interesting. She headed the court fight against Spain to protect the name Champagne for that specific region of Champagne in France. Otherwise, Champagne would mean nothing. It would just be like sparkling wine. And that's why we in America can only call our wine sparkling wine because she took it to court and she lost at first. She lost the whole argument, and then she went back and took it to a different court and she won. So that is why I forget the year, I think it was 1955, something like that, where she fought to keep the name Champagne for that region alone.
Again, so fascinating.
Yeah.
All of this in terms of this one, well, obviously a high profile beverage, but all the history that's there and what it's gone through over the ages, over the centuries is so phenomenal. And your knowledge of it. Now, one of the things I read about you, Rebecca, is that you are a speaker for the National Women's History Alliance. And I thought, this dovetails. I don't know which came first.
Oh, my writing comes first. And then, because then like I was telling you, I just am doing a slideshow about this book. When you do all the research, I gather pictures and knowledge about each of these women that I write about. And it's fascinating then to share that with people. And so, yes, I do talks through the Historical Society, and I also do book club groups, a lot of book club groups on Zoom. And that is great fun because I love to hear, what their questions are and get into things that they'd like to know more about.
Certainly. So is that something you're available to do if
Yeah.
someone contacts you?
Yes,
Yeah.
they can go on my website, which is rebecca-rosenberg.com. You can sign up for a free Zoom, but there are so many freebies on there for this book that's coming out shortly. License to Thrill, Lily Bollinger. And some of the freebies that are on my website are really cool. One is the most famous quote about champagne, which Lily Bollinger said. And she said it to a reporter in 1961. I'm sure you read it. I just love it. Here it is. I only drink champagne when I'm happy and when I'm sad. Sometimes I drink it when I'm alone. When I have company, I consider it obligatory. I trifle with it when I'm not hungry, and I drink it when I am. Otherwise, I never touch it, unless I'm thirsty. So,
Priceless.
what? So, Kate, I just feel like that tells us who she was, right?
Yes.
She was tongue in cheek. She was witty. And it's very funny. And I knew that quote and I didn't even realize that she said it. So I love that. So you can actually download that poster that I had made, especially for this book. You can download the poster on my website. You can download the reading guide. I have champagne cocktails that you can download the recipes. So there's a lot of fun stuff there.
I agree. It's just such a dynamic website. I found there's just so much going on that's of interest. Like, where shall I start? It's like being a kid in a candy factory, I think. It's just, there's so much there. So it's a great site, and definitely encourage people to check it out. And the fact that you make yourself available, to attend a book group. Certainly here in the Northwest, book groups are a big thing. So I'm trusting there'll be some activity on that.
I've had book groups all over the country, and it's so much fun. So you can sign up for that on my website, rebecca-rosenberg.com.
Perfect. So this new book is just coming out. Of course, it takes time for it to see the light of day, for its birthing. That means that you are working on other things in the meantime, and so you do have another one that's in the works, right?
I have, the three right now I'm focusing on the Champagne Widows, and I guess I mentioned that I'm going to be writing some books about champagne, but not fiction. I'll write some nonfiction books about champagne because it seems to make sense that I would talk. I'm going to do one that is about the wit and wisdom of champagne. You've got 200 years of the funniest and, wonderful things that people have said about champagne. And then I'm going to do one about the details of champagne in case people want to know that. So I'll work on that next. And then after that, I'm going to do a series about the Egyptian pharaohs who were women. There were 5 Egyptian pharaohs who were women. So I'm going to write about them.
That certainly sounds really intriguing. And will it be all 5?
I haven't decided that yet. I've been to Egypt twice. It depends on how much story there is. Like when I first started Champagne Widows series, I thought it was going to be one book, Champagne Widows. Then I realized, wow, these stories are totally different, and they're super interesting in different aspects, like totally different years and totally different things that happened to them. So it ended up to be 3 books. And I may write a book about the sparkling wine women because, as I said, I know them all. I've interviewed them all for a website called sparklingdiscoveries.com. And I'm very impressed with them. And they are modern and they're American. And I'd like to tell their stories as well.
And they're in your region. Are they in Sonoma County?
Yeah, they're right in Sonoma County. So that would be fun.
So it's interesting that it is the women of the sparkling wines. Are there men who do this, who have, what would we say, wineries? Because sparkling wines, right?
I would say, I'm just going to make this up because I don't know. I would say 80% to 90% are owned by men. So I'm just talking about what the women bring to the picture.
Sure. Well, no, that's fascinating. Yeah. And I'm glad that there's that many. And maybe, as the stories get told, there's encouragement for others around, on the other side of the country or something that hear this, learn this. Yes.
Well, one aspect of these women that I want to bring up, because I'm really impressed with this. Like, I look back when I'm finished with this book and I say, wow, what an incredible woman. But if you read it as you're reading it, no one little thing she does is incredible. It's one little thing after another, after another, after another. And it reminds me, Kate, of you and me every day doing the best we can. And so I'm impressed that we women have a lot of talents we bring to things, and energy and humanity. And it all adds up to be a great life. So that's my word for the day.
Oh, beautiful words for the day. And I'm glad you said that, because that's part of what we want to do. I hope to do with a program like this is to share these stories of encouragement, see where, there are these lessons that will really help us to go on to the next step, and that it's not like the whole big picture ahead of time, which is why I was interested in how you came to do this writing and your interest in champagne, because it's not something standard. So the stories I think, are really great and encouraging.
Well, I am lucky because I live right in the middle of the vineyard. So I can see what's happening with the grapes and when the harvest is and what they smell like and what they feel like. And, I can see the seasons change. So why not take advantage of that knowledge?
Oh, without question. And I deem you to be one of the most fortunate women in the country, in the world, to be able to have this life in the midst of the vineyards. Like Hallmark has these amazing shows about vineyards, and I'm always intrigued to just see what's going on. Of course, those are shows. You're living it.
Yeah, it's nice to live it. It really is a wonderful place because it's country, but there's a lot of culture around the wine industry. So that's nice.
Yes. And if you decide to go to a wine tasting, it's really easy to do, probably walking distance even.
I can walk to at least 10 wineries from here, like no problem.
That's perfect. You don't have to worry about driving somewhere.
Yeah. But I'm not going to worry about running out. Yeah. It'll all be here.
That as well. And, in terms of that too, that we can look forward to some more education, some more insights into wineries, into champagne, because you've got these other projects on the horizon. But let's mention your website again so that, that a wealth of information is there.
It is Rebecca-Rosenberg.com. And I didn't mention that I have a great blog that I just started with this novel that's called Champagne Chronicles. And I will keep that up because there's been a lot of interest in it. So I'm going to keep it up and go back and cover the other widows in it and lots of things about champagne. So if you're into sparkling wine, that would be a fun thing to look at.
It sounds amazing. Just as I feel you are so amazing, Rebecca.
Sweet.
Well, I really appreciate the writing you've done, the information you bring us, the encouragement that exists here. And it's just been fun to get to know you a little this morning and to share your encouragement, your passion with our listeners. I am truly grateful. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here this morning to meet women who are doing so much important work in our community and the world. Please check the station's website for the podcasts for more information about these guests, and please share the stories with your family and friends. I'm Kate Daniels. If you'd like to connect with me, simply send me an email, katedaniels@hubbardradio.com. Let today be the day you stand strong for something important in your life.
Thank you for listening to Inspirational Women. Tune in every Sunday morning at this time to hear about those truly empowering the Northwest community, all for the greater good. Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women are a public service of Hubbard Radio Seattle.